what is sexual consent, pardon me, and who can give consent?
Who can give consent?
Yes.
So I will start with what sexual consent is.
Yes.
So there is like the English word goes, consent. Have you consented to something?
Yes.
Have you agreed? Have you accepted? So basically, is agreement, approval, and we have, of course, agreement, approval, or what is it, incorporation of getting into sexual relations. Sexual intercourse. Adults in the room, I can, So, and we also have the law where it talks about, section 42, being a lawyer.
Today I want you to do that. Because people ask questions, and sometimes people are like, what is the legal approach about it? So today, just share it.
And it's important for the listener to know that the law is very clear.
There's a t-shirt like that. I digress. But anyway, the law is very, very clear. And also, maybe before I go on, it's important to mention that the law is accessible to everybody. That's one thing I realize when I talk about it. You just need to go to the website and type Sexual Offences Act. It pops up.
Yes.
All laws in Kenya are accessible on the internet.
Wow.
Through Kenya Law Report.
But
then there's this assumption that only lawyers, only legal experts,
or
people who interact with the law know the law. So when I say section 42 of the Sexual Offences Act, you just need to type actually SOA Kenya. It pops up and you check all that, right? So it says that a person consents if he or she agrees by choice. There's choice, there's freedom, and there's capacity.
Yes.
So I have chosen, I've consented. I'm in a position to, I'm not coerced.
Please repeat that again kindly.
Okay.
The person?
Should I go slow? A person consents to sexual activities, relations, you know. If he or she agrees by choice, you agree by choice, you have the freedom and you have capacity. Now, that leads me to the second question.
What is the capacity?
Exactly. Who can consent? A minor cannot consent.
Yes.
Sexual relations, we've had instances where, there's defilement of minors and you're asked in court, this is a minor, they don't have the capacity. Remember there was this argument last year about one on reducing the age of sexual
I remember.
consent.
I'm still upset about that.
Me too. I was discussing with a colleague. I'm like,
no,
we don't
if
need
it's
to
working
be so
for South
westernized.
Africa, it cannot work for us.
Exactly. So the consent and the argument was, they are 16-year-olds.
Apparently, they're developed
internationally are minors.
Yes.
So those cannot consent.
Okay.
Right?
So it's still in our laws. A minor from the age of 18 and below cannot consent.
Yes.
Okay.
18 is an adult.
Yeah.
So 17.
17 and below,
Okay, the parenting means like no,
still small, still young. So, but so of course, a person of sound mind, person who is not who has not been coerced. When we continue speaking, I'll tell you types of consent.
Please go ahead.
When I wink at you, or you wink at me and then I blush, is that consent?
No.
Exactly. It needs to be something we call express consent. I've expressly said yes. FYI, I can change my mind.
Yeah.
In the process. And before I came here, I had a discussion with a few of my colleagues and legal friends, and they were like, no, we've already started it. Why are you telling me to stop in the middle?
Yeah, and that's always the argument.
I'm not consented. And you see, taking you back to what the law says, if I have not consented, agreed, what does it lead to? Sexual assault. It becomes rape.
You said something about sound mind.
Yes.
What did you mean by that? Of sound mind? Because I remember capacity. You've answered capacity. You've answered about the age. Now and then, what is that sound mind?
Okay, so should I say mentally incapacitated?
Yeah, like if someone is not
mentally incapable of making a decision.
Okay. Maybe they're ill.
Yes, because in instances like getting into legal contract or any nature of contract, if I'm not of stable mind, I'm not able to make a good choice.
Okay.
And who determines that?
Who determines that?
Yeah,
it gets murky.
I know.
In instances where they have to prove the person was on sound mind, they have to bring in psychologists, mental assessment. They do mental assessments to see. Because that's also another aspect of defense. If the other person says, if the victim says, I wasn't of sound mind, I did not consent, then taken through assessment.
Or is that why I've seen some people, maybe they have a person who's of not sound mind in the house, or maybe has some mental challenges, and when they realize that maybe they were sexually assaulted or alleged there was a sexual assaultment, they would say the person was not of sound mind.
Or intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
It's also that word, AWDs, people living with with intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
So that covers a lot. It covers birth defects. It covers the slow growth
Yes.
and all the stunted growth and all that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The ones who need special care,
Yes.
like mentally handicapped. That's not
Yes.
a word that is really
Used these days,
kind
but I
to
understand.
use. Yes.
Okay.
I will mention that the law, believe it or not, up to this point, it still uses imbeciles.
What?
Yeah, I've seen that.
What?
I saw that when I
What?
But
Googled
in
it.
there's a number of there's an organization I was working for previously, which is following that to make sure that the law gets rid of that. Imagine.
That is a very, very.
It's crazy.
That's a.
So I was talking
Wow.
about consent.
Yeah.
Before I throw you,
No problem.
No,
throwing facts
continue.
all over the place. So there's express consent.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, unmistakably, I said yes. Let's do this. Now, these two other consents are gray area, but then I mean, it's consent from one conduct. I come, I lie on your chest and all that. Like, so you was really, really sure, because
Maybe the physical touch.
it gets to a point when, I mean, husband and wife, you have to be asking all the time, which will take us to a discussion on marital rape.
Yes.
Do I, because I've already given dowry, do I have to keep asking all the time? You know, what's the gray area of, because what I need to prove for rape is things like soft tissue
Injuries.
Yeah.
semen and all that. But that's
Yeah.
my husband.
Yeah.
How do I prove it?
Or my boyfriend.
Takes us back to consent.
Okay.
Did I allow? Did they have sex with me by force? Did I want to do it? It's a very gray area. Unfortunately, the laws in Kenya I'm not gotten there yet to prosecute marital rape. Why?
Yeah.
There are two people in the room, right? And this is my husband. I mean,
Yes.
those are acts of marriage, for lack of a better word. You
Yes.
know, acts of partnership, people living together, right? I mean, what would we be doing?
Exactly.
So the onus of proof really lies on the victim.
Which
Because I'll say
sometimes is a
this
challenge.
It's a challenge, because this is my wife. No, I didn't force her. Then what happened? So it takes us to the aspect of looking at physical assault, scratch marks and all that. That's a road.
So, and if there are no, physical,
That's the thing. And there is one of the professors in she's a renowned lawyer, and she said it needs to get to a point where women in marriage need to be given the leeway to give consent. She's called Professor Mbote.
what does that
She-
mean?
Like you can say no to your husband, and it goes. Look at her. You know, that's the thing, because that's consent, really.
I know, I get it. As a woman, I get it, but will a man understand it? And he's paid my dowry. He's walked me down the aisle. He's talked to my, will he get it? Will he get it when Karigo says no?
The Shy Mistress is asking, will this partner of yours get it when you say no to acts of marriage, or as we call it on the adults in the room, reading the Constitution? If you join the conversation, we are the adults in the room, and today we are talking to Naitore Gituma, an advocate of the High Court, a human rights activist, gender expert, and the conversation today is consent and rape. Plug into this conversation through our social media handles, SpiceFM KE on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you have any questions that you want to put across, you can do so from our socials. We also have a WhatsApp line that is 01102 88162 01102 88162. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
Then what are the rules of what consent is not?
Consent is not, because I said yes last time,
Yes.
it's not continuous. Yes. Or because of what I'm wearing. Remember, my dress, my choice.
Yes.
That is not consent. And you hear conversations about
Why was she wearing
kwa nini
that?
alikuwa amevaa hivyo? You know,
Yes.
why were they dressed
Mbona
that way?
but lakini ulikuwa
They brought
umevaa
it to
aje?
themselves. That is how I wear does not mean that I'm consenting to sexual relations.
Yes.
Consent is not what is it called? Behavioral. Because I've smiled at you. Because I've winked. I was talking about the implied consent, express consent, right?
Yes.
You really have to be sure, because you know the consequences of not getting it right means
You're getting it wrong.
you're what is it called? You're
You're
a potential accused.
Yes.
You know, you're accused.
Yeah,
You're
you've
a
assaulted.
Likely perpetrator.
Yeah.
Who wants to go through that?
No
You
one.
know? So so consent also is not where I go or how I look like. It should be definite that I am into it and I want it.
Wow.
And like I keep saying, I can change my mind midway. Round
What
2, round
happens?
3, I'm tired. No.
What
Because then
happens
the
to those who
aggression-
change their
What
mind?
happens?
To those who change their mind midway and someone feels that they already consented and considering they were in this relationship, that they were having a partnership relations, as you call them.
Midway.
Yes.
Like at the same incident.
It's within the
Same day.
hour. Same
Within
day.
the hour.
Yes.
What happens to who now? Is it
What-
because there are two parties here?
Let me give an example. Let me
Okay.
give it a practical example. We have a couple or a partner, people are dating, and they decide to consent to partner relations, as we call it, reading the Constitution. So they were having a very nice evening, and it reached about 4 a.m., and this other person says no. Remember, at midnight, she agreed or he agreed, and they say no towards the end, and a scuffle or a fiasco appears to happen between them, and the lady later comes on and says or reports, hey, yesterday this and that happened and I was raped, or I said no, and this person goes like, but she was there, she was at my house, she slept over, she came over, she said yes at midnight.
It doesn't matter. Well, the definition of sexual offenses gives 3 conditions. Penetration. Did I say? I didn't say what. We will get there. But one of the things that determines what sexual offenses are, there has to be consent and there has to be no coercion. So it doesn't matter whether I was in your house or not. If I was not forced to do it, or if I did not consent, that's already a violation.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if I was forced and if I didn't consent
Or coercion.
coercion,
Yeah.
that is already.
And what
That's the thing.
happens if I consented to it because of alcohol or
That's
drugs?
sound mind. You remember what we were saying? Are you in a
And then,
position to make a choice?
But he'll come and and I'm speaking as a woman, he'll come and he'll say, but ulisema yes, najua ulikuwa mlevi, but ulisema yes.
Intoxicated.
Yeah.
Now, burden of proof. You are the one to prove that you were indeed drunk and you are not able to.
But I was drunk. We
Mark
both know I was drunk.
But that's why she says burden of proof.
How?
You allege it's proved. You have to, because now you see my word against yours. That's what happens. You know, there is no time you'll ever go to court and easily somebody accepts, yes, I did it. Sometimes they do, yes, for mitigation and all that. But then this is a case of sexual assault, which has got a lot of years in prison, right? So you have to prove, hey, I was intoxicated and all that, and they still did it. Evidence both sides.
I want to bring you to something that we were just about to
And
touch.
the problem is also there are no witnesses, so
That's yeah,
becomes-
and I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Let me build up on
because I'm trying to understand, how do I prove I was drunk? I'm now sober. How do I prove I was drunk yesterday? Does it mean you'll have to take my blood samples, urine samples? Like, how will I prove that I was drunk? I was drunk.
They can
And
take that. Yeah, they need.
So it's
because
possible?
of the. We'll talk about it later. Hopefully, we'll have time
Yeah.
on the steps to take
Okay.
when you go through sexual assault.
Now, let me build up on what Karigo is talking about. Someone has found themselves in that scenario,
Yeah.
and they're saying, I said no, or I was drunk, and this and that happened. So now this is a case of rape. What is rape, and what is defilement
okay.
as per the law?
So, rape and defilement is, where a person is committed on the act of penetration. Now, there's a difference between rape and sexual assault.
Yes.
Attempted
Yeah.
assault, right? So this one is where you cause penetration, the genital organs, and the conditions I was talking about.
Yes.
And the person who has been violated, survivor, call them survivors,
Yes.
victims, yeah, does not consent to the penetration.
Okay.
You see, that is why it's connected.
So it goes
Yeah.
back to
It goes
consent.
back to consent. Did I allow it? See, that's why it's forceful. That's why rape is forceful. You understand? Penetration, consent, or number 2, when the consent is obtained by force or by means of threats or intimidation.
Can we also include those who have been dragged? Because I've had instances, especially in this day and age, where we have men who have been dragged, not women. Also, because many people know about
Michele.
women,
It's
but
both ways,
also
actually.
men these days are dragged. Can we also include us, or does the law also include that?
Yes, it does. It does. Now, based on the definition of what rape is, there have been discussions around it not really describing what, in terms of penetration to his or her genital organ. So it's already there. The Sexual Offences Act talks about his and hers.
His
and
and
organ. So both. It covers both genders. So yes, to the men as well.
This
That's
I'm going-
also rape.
You said
Yeah.
you're a human activist, so I'm going to ask this question.
Yes.
There are myths that surround matters of consent and matters of rape. And I'm asking this because in our society, I've seen it so much, even sometimes when we have conversations on social media. When a man says, I was defiled, I was raped, people tend to laugh. People tend to say it's not possible because you're a man, you know, based on your physical structure, on your reproductive organs, it's not possible, or that is what is. So I want you to talk to us. What are the myths that surrounds matters of consent and rape on both genders?
Exactly. And I'll take you back.
Yes.
Second ago, you just said because you're a man.
Yeah, because that is
you
what
say that.
I get very upset online. And if, as recent as over the weekend, someone reminded me that I am not a man, so that I cannot feel or empathize by men, which I felt that was out of line, because it does not mean I have to be that gender to feel identify with someone when they're going through something.
So what you asked is the myths and misconceptions around sexual assault and sexual violations.
Yes.
I mean, it happens. And I don't know if privilege is a word, but I've been in a position to be able to represent or like work with men who have been sexually violated, and they have cases in court. Now the problem is where you have to come out, because society does not, I mean, when I say society, because we will wonder what kind of man is this. Do you see even the violence alone?
Yes.
I mean, couldn't he respond?
Paint us a picture.
Yes.
Paint us a picture of what a man who's experienced rape or the lack of consent, and he's come and he said, hey, I need help, I'm a victim. What does it look like
So
for the listener? Because maybe men have been raped and they don't know they've been raped.
Mostly because of what do I say, genitalia.
Yeah.
It's normally sodomy. I mean, like man. Then from the backside, assault, right? I'm not sure how to explain from a woman, because then it's when you say penetration.
Yeah, that's
the
why it
genitalia.
always.
So no. Mostly it's normally like from the backside and like gangs and all that, and you're walking home, you know.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be walking home really, but in different circumstances.
Yeah.
But from the backside, from the anal side, and men, because then if you have to prove penetration in court, it's going to be difficult. If there is no objects or like so from a woman to a man, I've not come across such a case. I would really want to hear that has been in court. A woman being raped, I mean a woman raping a man. So mostly it's normally
They drag them, for what I've heard.
they drag them, and of course
Yes.
they'll do objects.
Yes. Either they drag them and stimulate them in different ways. And because I've had someone say that they've gone through that, their child actually, to be specific. The problem, and it leads me to this question. Between you and us here, is it easy for a man to prove rape than a woman? Who of the two?
Easy for a man
Is it harder, pardon me, is it harder
Yes.
for a man to prove rape than a woman?
And because I'll take you back to the definition. Now, if you want to really, really go technical, it says which causes penetration. So it can also be a woman.
Yeah.
When you'd say drag them, what did they use to cause penetration? Would call that rape and violation. It doesn't have to be, what do I say, front genitalia for women?
Yeah, because honestly, I'm a bit confused. I'm like, so what do we call it? Because in all sense, it was not consensual.
Yes, it is. It is. Penetration has to be there. Now, because if there is no penetration, it's going to be attempted rape.
Oh, so that's where we hear the difference.
And
Attempted.
There is attempted rape, there is rape, and then there is sexual assault.
Yeah.
Wait,
Indecent, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Indecent assault.
Yeah.
That's
there's
in
attempted
groping and all
rape.
that. Yes.
There's rape,
You didn't penetrate.
and then there's indecent
assault,
Yeah.
groping and all that.
And
You
there are
understand?
men who experience indecent assault
lot.
every other
But
day.
because of how society has conditioned
Yeah.
you come up and guys are like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Let's come back then you actually elaborate on matters of indecent assault, because I feel there are many people who might have gone through it and they do not know that they have gone through it, or it's actually a sexual offense.
Spice.
Now, before we went to the break, Naitore, we were speaking about matters of attempted rape. The part of the, what did you call them? Let me remind myself. We talked about attempted rape,
Yeah.
rape, and
Indecent.
assault.
indecent assault.
Yes.
What is the difference between those three things? Break it down for us.
So rape. I'll start with rape.
Yeah,
first of all.
yes, and of course you
That is,
explained it.
of course, I already explained. Where there is penetration, there is no consent, and then they've not been coerced or forced to do it, right?
Yeah.
So we have indecent assault, which is what do I say?
The touching, groping,
indecently, and what is not respectable. Of course, let's keep in mind that always there should be consent. Because, I mean, we're adults in the room. I'll say, well, I like it rough. But did I agree to it?
Can I give an example so that maybe we can have, there was an incident a couple of weeks back, I think 2 weeks ago back, where a lady had an accident with a guy around Museum Hill. Can we say that was indecent assault?
Yes.
The way she was handled?
Yes. Because there was no attempt to penetrate.
Okay.
That one now would be attempted rape.
Okay.
What clarifies, what draws the line is penetration. That becomes rape. For children, by the way, it's called defilement.
Yes, for children.
Minor.
Yes.
So, yes, indecent assault.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are some gentlemen who say, I went to the club and there's a girl who was all over my hair. So I'm speaking from a guy who has long hair, dreadlocks.
Okay.
And he says, Kariko, I feel like I was defiled. I feel like I was assaulted. I feel like my space was invaded.
That is indecent assault. Why?
That's what I wanted you to say it for the
There's no
gentleman.
consent. The fact that the man is already feeling violated wouldn't call it sexual violation.
Yeah.
That there's no genitalia.
Yes.
But that is indecent assault.
So
Sexual harassment also can feature depending on how far, to what extent they
So
went.
for example,
Yes.
this man, for example, I have, not I, but I have, need his hair because hair. Then as he moves, he's behind. Is that
That's
indecent?
sexual harassment.
I want us to be very clear because, Barbara, these are things we see. We see outside here in the workplaces, in the co-workplaces. We see them in the clubs. We see them in public spaces. And we think it's for fun because it's a guy.
Oh, it's normal.
We think because it's a guy, it's not bad. It's not something that should affect him. But then I want to know, who is a likely abuser then?
Can I take you back
Yes,
1
please.
second?
Yes.
Please. Now, the Sexual Offences Act, interestingly, and I'll take us back and also correct myself and also to the listeners. Sexual assault, you remember the instance you just gave on
Museum Hill?
And no, the men,
Yes.
for example.
Yeah.
So it says a person who unlawfully penetrates the genital organs of another person with any part of the body of that person or an object manipulated by another. So like, for example, if I take a dildo and like I assault a man, that is sexual assault. That's the difference. Genitalia in rape, what is it called? Objects. And whether it's penetration, it becomes
Because
sexual
sex
assault.
toys, people may assume because it's a sex toy, it should be
brings
acceptable.
that brings the conversation on women
Yes.
causing
Drag-
sexual assault to
yes.
men.
And that's why I was asking, because
There
I
you get your
honestly
answer.
believe,
Thank you.
I
Exactly.
honestly have believed for a very long time that there are women who actually assault men, but the only problem is they can't prove it. Now, when we're talking about assault, there is this statement that is usually said, allow me to paraphrase it. We said, if someone has given consent, then it is not a sexual offense. But sometimes in romantic relations, where it becomes a problem for you to give consent. And it takes me back to what you'd asked. Remember when you talked about marital rape? Then you said we'll get back to it. Now, when we talk about matters of home, are women or men in relationships, more so marriages, either do they go through the three things that we've talked about? Rape, we've talked about that. Do they go through attempted rape, or what the third one?
Indecent assault.
Indecent assault in
Sexual
the relationships.
assault.
Or now that one will be
different.
sexual assault.
Yes.
My God,
Now,
the law is
I
complicated.
need to take you back. There's something you said that maybe we need to like cover it up. When you say that the men are not able to prove, they can prove. If an object has been inserted in any part of your body, in your anus, in your mouth, I mean, there's injury. There's soft tissue injury. You just go to hospital, PRC form is written, medical report is written, you go to police station. But now the problem, like I keep saying, is the issue is, do the men feel confident and bold enough to go and say a woman has sexually assaulted me? That's where the problem is.
Do you think they
But
can
you can
feel bold enough because of the
They need to
stigmatization?
feel bold because the law has protected them.
Yeah.
But you
I
go
mean-
to a police station, darling, and even
Yeah, I
you,
know.
and I'm not saying that I am castigating any police officer or anyone of the authority, but what I've seen on Twitter, and there've been conversations about it, because I am a silent follower in there. I see men say men say it is difficult when you actually say that I was violated or I went through a sexual offense. People ask you, were you asleep? Were you this? Are you a man? Are you that? So even when we say the law covers us, they even say to the extent that when you go to the police station, those people who are supposed to serve you are the ones making or poking fun at you.
Exactly. But then we need to get to a space of the men themselves knowing their rights,
How?
knowing the law.
Just going and
Like,
finding
for
out
example,
and
knowing
doing
the
it.
definition of rape covers
That's-
you as a man.
thank
I'm
you.
sure most men would not know that.
Yeah.
They would think it just covers the women. So once a man knows their rights, then they're able to follow the referral mechanisms.
Yeah.
When you say referral mechanisms for help for sexual assault, it's for both genders. The government, the constitution covers everybody.
Yeah.
But then they need to get to that space of bypassing humiliation and we'll talk about when we are ending, because I always give them
Yes, and
you
they're
know
there.
that always work in the country, and then you say this is the help I need to, and you can also go with a social worker to report.
Yeah.
It was really bad. Yeah.
Talking about rape, maybe a man has been
Marital,
raped or a woman has been raped. What should be their first step? What should they do?
So their first step is reporting to the going for
And I'm also
checkup.
including marital rape in this.
Exactly,
Because based
Now-
on what you've given,
Yeah.
because if you can prove, you've told us the idea is, can you prove?
But before she gives us,
what it is.
yeah. And also, who is this person who is a likely abuser?
Then a likely abuser is anybody who's of the opposite sex, same
Sex.
gender actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is one thing, your brother, your uncle, your father.
Anyone.
My goodness, we've had instances of fathers defiling 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds. It's
That's
just
sad.
extreme.
Therefore, everyone should be
Yes.
counted as a suspect.
And I keep telling parents,
Yeah.
you need to check the demeanor of your child. All of a sudden changes and the child is going to a corner and is withdrawn. A very bubbly child. Let's be very sensitive to the environment. Our neighbor, like teachers, we have incidents of teachers. Those cases are really high right now.
Yeah,
You know,
heard about
even
that.
in girls' school, even in same relations.
Yeah.
Right? So anybody who's a caregiver, anybody who has access to a child, access to you, is a likely abuser.
Yeah.
Spice.
We were talking about polycare, and it was in reference to the question like, if someone has been raped or I encountered an alleged rape, or how do they go about it? And you actually gave us the steps of what to do, but
Yes.
you mentioned something called polycare. What is polycare?
Okay, so polycare is police care. In short,
Okay.
polycare. It was launched a few months ago by the First Lady,
Okay.
and it's where traffic headquarters is.
Yes, I
Yes.
Well, the hope is to replicate similar ones in every county.
Yes.
But for now, it's one that is Nairobi County, because previously, or rather, what is expected when there is sexual assault is you go to the police station, get the PRC, then the medical doctor fills it, then you go back to one copy, give to police, leave one to the hospital. But now in this case, it's a one-stop shop.
So it's only at the moment available to the residents of Nairobi.
Yeah. Well, there's one sorts of one-stop shop in Makueni County,
Okay.
and other smaller ones in other counties like Meru and the rest. Not many, around 12 or so counties. Not much, because it comes with a lot of funding to have a counselor on board, police on board, medical doctor on board, to get you all those technical people in one space. So I think that's good job. I'll share the number later, and that's work in progress. Up to that point, a survivor can walk in there. It's opposite traffic headquarters, where it's actually very boldly.
I know.
boldly.
Yeah,
I know.
Yellow
Next to
and
that T
red
junction.
and-
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah. So that's at least there's progress.
Yeah.
So, and that information needs to go out to everybody, and of course it's 24 hours. When you call, you get the help. There's also that number for the GBV hotline.
The 1195.
Good girl.
Oh yeah. I've been doing
Kenya,
homework.
really, when I bring that up, they're like 999. I'm like,
No.
It's for GBV.
And
Yes.
every time I
Gender-based violence, 1195.
Specifically.
Exactly.
Specifically.
Countrywide.
Yeah.
And they will give you referrals.
Yeah.
They will give you resources. Call this number, go to this police station, go to this rescue.
And it
because
works, by the guys.
Yeah.
It
It
does.
works.
It does.
It works.
I've gone to stations where they called them, hello, and of course they pick. So good thing. I know for sure it works.
I personally
Yes.
have used it,
You
and I
have?
was shocked. I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
kumbe
It does.
things in this country can work."
Countries try. Yes, they work.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
considering. So let's talk about marital rape.
Yes.
Married couple, there is consent for the first and the second and the third constitution in the bedroom. When the wife refuses, can the husband be accused for rape? Which brings me to a question that Barbara and I really need to know. How often does marital rape happen? And can you really rape your wife?
As you can see, there are several questions of
This
or
the
about
first
it.
one was from WhatsApp, and then I followed it up with a question, because this is a gentleman who's saying ya kwanza, and we adults, we know what he's saying.
Exactly.
Ya
Round one,
kwanza,
round two.
round 1, round
Yeah,
2, round
yeah.
3. If ikifika round 4, kwani atasema nimemrape na bado nadai?
Do you remember?
She's my wife.
Wait, Karigo. Do you remember me saying that consent I can change my mind?
Yes.
Midway. That's the answer. And you asked me, what can a husband
Yeah,
rape
a wife.
Let me give you the definition of what marital rape. I mean, what courts have said that to be.
Thank you.
Because it's not in the Sexual Offences Act. Then you're able to define to let me know based on round 1, round 2 if that is rape. Marital rape in any case where a person uses violence or threat of violence to force his or her spouse to have sex. Marital rape is as common as other forms of rape. So that happens a lot. That answers your question.
Yeah.
Right? So threat of violence, sorry,
Yes,
and I
yes.
have forced you. Round 1, I consented. Round 2, I consented. I don't want round 3, and you force me. What is that? Remember the definition of what rape is.
Yeah. So what do I do? This is my husband. This is my boyfriend. What do I do? Tell me.
Now, you can report yes.
He's my husband. I'll still have to go back to him.
You talked of the burden of proof when we were on a previous link. How do we
That is
bring it up?
realistic, actually.
I have to go back. Go to Barbara. I have to go back to this man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She talked
Yeah.
of burden of proof.
And
I
unfortunately,
have to
I'll
go
tell
back
you
to this
what,
man.
most partners, I mean, they don't have to be like wife in a marriage setup legally, like the regimes of marriage.
Yeah.
We are living together, right? It's a
or a boyfriend and girlfriend.
When you're living together,
Cohabiting.
cohabitation,
Yeah.
you know, and all that, and we're in relations, and like you're saying, is my husband, my partner, I have to go back to them. There's a lot of people who are going through that. Now the drawing line comes in where I know my rights, fortunately or fortunately, and I want to report this.
Okay.
But where do we go from there?
Exactly. Thank you.
I mean, the law is there to defend you who's feeling violated.
How?
And the law, because they follow procedure now, unfortunately.
So are you
The
planning on
courts
going
in
back to this
Kenya-
marriage?
The courts in Kenya are not have not proven any case of marital rape.
Ati?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, because tell me, we've been speaking for almost an hour.
Oh my
Wait, Karigo, wait.
Yeah,
What are
but
you
yeah,
saying?
Yeah,
What
but
do
I
you
get
look
that.
at? What do you look at? What do you look at when you're trying to prove rape?
We've said all those things. The forcefulness, the
Yeah, but
It was
having
already
bruise.
there. It was already there because you consented for it.
Not
the
even
first.
that. I'm your husband. The semen has to
Yeah.
be found in my wife. Sweat. I mean, we are having sex, right? So
No, come on. What
The question,
because I'll deny. I say no. I didn't force her. I was. having
Imagine
sex
I'm
with
really
her.
struggling. I'm struggling because Barbara, I'm struggling. Ladies, I'm struggling because I don't understand. He's raped me. He's raped me. I have said no. Yes, I said yes. But I've said no. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I've had enough. I'm like tomorrow. But the fact remains I've said no. So you want to tell me in this case, the law cannot protect me?
The question, Karigo,
Because that's what I'm hearing.
I get why
I'm
you're
struggling.
Yes, I get why you're struggling. I think what Naitore is saying, yes, you're struggling, but there's an aspect of where you said yes. So when you said yes, the evidence is already going to be in your system. So when you come back and yes, after maybe round 3 and you said no, remember the first yes. Can they differentiate? This is the semen for yes and this is the semen for no.
consent
They
or
cannot.
pre-consent
Well, then
discussion.
They
that's
can't.
the- well-
So that's where she said, you remember we said the burden of proof, it becomes very difficult for the courts or for the judicial system to prove certain things. Secondly, after you prosecute your partner, as she said, saying is, what next? Are you planning on going back? Because if you plan of accusing of your partner of alleged rape, please know that relationship is not going to continue. So that's why she was asking, what next? And that's why many of us are not able to prove it, because you'll say it, then tomorrow you're going back to the same house.
And you know why I'm also struggling, Naitore? Because I've gotten the courage to go and say, listen, I have been abused. I've been abused. And then you're telling me the burden of proof.
Listen, to that extent,
I'm like,
it's
yo,
unfortunate, but that
you
is
can say
it's
physical assault.
like then it's a losing battle
Physical
for
assault,
me.
scratch marks and all that, and beaten and battery. But sexual assault, and there's a statement that says, I mean, the cultural stereotypes have, because this is my husband, they've conferred all sexual rights to him.
Oh yeah, there's that.
You understand?
Yes.
Nilimuoa, nilitoa mahari. And what are we supposed to do? Continue reading the Constitution.
Yes.
Like you're saying, right? Up to the end
Yeah.
of all the chapters. So how do you prove? Because again, the courts in Kenya really respect the institution of marriage.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
There are no witnesses.
Actually, yeah, there are no witnesses.
It's your word against mine. I'm like, this is
Can
my
we
wife.
amend-
Look
can
at
we have
look
some
at it this way.
amendments?
Look at it. This is my wife. I mean, she consented. I had sex. No, I was raped. Prove, Mrs. Naitore. You're Mrs. Naitore. How do you prove that?
It becomes difficult.
And there is no legal definition, unfortunately, again. Which, of course, the what I was reading for you is of course, because there is no consent. It was forceful. There was penetration in the institution of marriage. That's why it's called marital rape.
Yeah.
It just goes back to the same definition of rape.
Yeah.
But then that's it. You know, that's why
the only thing is just defining it. But in totality, if we are honest, there's nothing that is going to be done.
It's going
for
to be hard to prove that.
So then why is it there?
because people
Because there was violence
let-
and there was no consent. We are heading there.
Guys, I'm still struggling.
If you join the conversation, we are the adults in the room. People are struggling in here. Give us a moment to catch our breath. We're talking about consent and rape. Naitore Gituma, an advocate of the High Court, a human rights activist, and a gender expert, is here to answer your question. Plug into this conversation through our social media handles, SpiceFM KE on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have seen your questions. We shall be sampling them when we come back.
Spice.